Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all had a good lunch. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ieswariya. I'm an associate director and head of the India Client Engagements team here at Zinnov. And I'm joined by eminent list of panelists. We have Rohit, Soumitra, Dhanya, and Sunita, where we're going to talk about the new value equation. We're going to rethink in terms of the entire value creation beyond efficiency. Most of you were also part of the previous panel discussion where they actually talked about in terms of how the integrated GCCs are going beyond and actually creating a global influence by driving portfolio, owning charters, and embedding themselves into strategic workflows. We are here to take it to the next step forward where we talk in terms of how we can create value beyond the cost. If the previous panel actually laid the foundation for global influence, we are going to talk in terms of how can we actually sustain the global influence. Before I even pose any question to the panelists here, with the rise of hands, I wanted to engage the audience for a minute. Can you tell us how many of you believe that your GCC is a value creator globally at this point in time with the rise of hands? Okay, that's quite a bit. And how many of you are still working to change that perception at this point in time? Okay, that's also a good number for sure. Even before I ask my set of questions and brainstorm with the panelists, do you have any question that you want them to answer or weave it part of their existing question? Please let us know. We are happy to do that. Let us know if you have any questions that just on top of your mind. Yes, please.
Similar to your second rise of hands, how do you change the value perception?
Absolutely, absolutely. We will definitely ensure that that's definitely part of it. We also want to start the panel discussion much more on a lighter note because I think a lot of heavy topics were discussed throughout the conference today, and you will hear a lot more tomorrow as well. So I just want to pose a question, more of a rapid fire question to all the panelists here. If your GCC has a persona today, and how would you describe it? Is it a builder? Is it an innovator? Or is it like a silent warrior? Or do you have any other adjective that you want to describe it? And why do you say so? Each of you have a minute, so tell us more in form of a rapid fire question. We'll start with you, Rohit.
Sure. Not to confuse it with the movie, but I would say a transformer or transformation agent is what I believe our GCC is really on, because there are a lot of transformation happening in the industry today as we talk about technology transformation, business transformation, and various other aspects of it. So we want to make sure that that's the persona that my organization takes.
Great. Bring in some humor, put out some metaphor, tell us more about it. So we wanted to really understand the DNA of your organization. Soumitra, yes.
Okay, our DNA is very unique. I would say maybe we are a rebellious innovator.
Okay.
Simply because we have been challenging status quo on multiple grounds. And we also believe that we are here to change the very notion of value delivery. It's about adding to the top line and bottom line of the company. That's it, right? So we are rebellious in nature and we are innovative in nature.
Being a rebel kid is always good. So it's good. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Dhanya.
So I was going to say that, the word disruptor came to my mind, actually, the moment you said it. So the reason I say disruptor is ever since we set up our operations out of India, this constant thing that has been that, oh my God, like you can do it like this? Is it possible to do it differently? Is it possible to do it in such a short time? To the point that some people even tell us, oh my God, sometimes you guys make us look bad. So, so we do believe that there's a little bit of disruption that goes around.
Yes, Sunita.
Sure.
Is
Is it on? It's not connected. So. Okay, small hiccups. But Ieswariya, I'm a little bit angry with you right now because you reminded people of lunch. They've forgotten. Yeah. But I think jokes apart, I think what I would look at is it's a thoughtful value creator. Thoughtful and continuous value creator is how I would like to be recognized. And
Okay.
That's what I think it is.
Thank you so much. And for the lunch part of it, snacks are around the corner, so don't worry about it. I just want to make that clear.
That helps. Beer would have
Love
been better.
all that analogy. I think it clearly gives us a sense of each of your organization that you're from, and each of it is a very diverse organization that all of you are from, right? Rohit, will start with you. You have been part of many of the organizations and where you have interacted very closely with a lot of the global teams, right? Over your decades of experience, tell us in terms of how the entire India perceptions has changed over the years, especially from a value creation perspective.
Yeah, my time goes a little bit back. I spent about a decade plus in the US and then a couple of decades here in India. My first time I had an experience of setting up a center in India or setting up a team in India was actually in mid-90s. Some of you may not have been born then, but that was a time when it was very difficult to find engineering talent itself in India. We used to hire COBOL programmers, teach them C, and then build software. That's the time. Fast forward to about mid 2000s, I was at Bell Labs and we were trying to set up an applied research group in India. Fantastic talent we were able to get from universities and other places who were really top of the line. It had really developed a lot, but we still were not able to find people who were able to connect to business or product in some sense. And then fast forward today, when we set up Wayfair in India, we are able to find some of the top talent, whether it's business logic, whether it is interest in product side of it, and of course technology as well, that we are actually building a very high-end tech center for Wayfair here. So what has happened over the years is that we've realized that it's always a chicken and egg, right? Did the talent come first or did the enablement of the GCCs come first? I think it happens in lockstep fashion, because we have really, really great talent that is now available in India in all possible domains. We are also getting GCCs who are actually now utilizing that talent, because now in order for you to retain the talent, you really need to do much harder work in order for you to retain. And when you do that, you realize, oh my God, I can actually get this value out of this particular talent pool that we have built. And at the same time, because GCCs are able to do a lot more work here, what is happening is the talent is able to get up to speed much, much faster. Right? So over the years, what has happened is the lockstep fashion of building great talent, not just from a technology perspective, but from product perspective, from business perspective, from strategic perspective, from transformation perspective. The GCCs have been able to move up the value chain, and some of them have done it knowingly and by choice, and some of them have been forced to do it, because if they did not, they would not be able to retain that talent. Right? And in that act, the talent has done the same thing. So as a result of which, you'll find, the work that we are doing today is absolutely top of the notch, right? Where we still need to get to is, all of you, when you pick up your phone, what is it that you see first? Probably WhatsApp, right? Not a single developer of WhatsApp actually sits out of India, right? When is it the opportunity for us as an organization, as a country, to be moving up to the chain where we become people who are building products that the rest of the world uses? That, I think, is still the next step that we haven't cracked to the same level yet, but I believe the path that we are going in will get us there as well.
Soumitra, it'll be great if you can add on to this point, right? There is this assumption that if a GCC headcount grows, it means that the value creation grows along with it, right? But we know that the growth isn't very linear in that way. In that case, tell us in terms of what are the non-negotiables for you to ensure that India doesn't become only an execution-only hub, right? Can you please add to that perspective?
Yeah, of course. And I think that's a brilliant segue to what I wanted to talk about. A very recent report by one of the big fours, which is about performance standards of GCCs in India, has come out. And not surprisingly, 65% of the GCCs who were kind of benchmarked, they are average performers in India, average, right? 8% are struggling for their existence. 19% are just above average. They're doing good on the value creation journey. And only 8% of GCCs in India as of today are truly adding value. That is a shocking story for us. And it's also a wake-up call for all GCCs over here to redefine how you perceive value and growth, right? So let me talk about that 8% and what differentiates that 8% from the remaining. There are 4 common characteristics of those 8% GCCs. Number one, they have their own identity, which means they have a radically clear and compelling vision of their own. Number two, they have an innovation ecosystem. It could be an R&D unit. And by innovation ecosystem is not about automating. It's not about automation. It's not about Kaizen. It is about disruptive and transformative innovation, which means they're either creating new products, new services, or adding new experience for customers, right? So you've got to hit the top line and the bottom line to be really innovative and be in a position to add value. That is value addition in my definition. The third, they have a rejuvenated employee value proposition, not the traditional sign-on bonus and your long-term incentives on shares, etc. But there is a very refreshed EVP. And finally, there is a little bit of a courageous leadership, bold leadership. They take calculated risks. Risk hai to ishq hai, right? That kind of a philosophy. And they progress on that line. So purely by value definition, they play to three things. Either they create a new product, a new service, they add to the top line, or they're actually elevating the customer experience. Now, to your question about non-negotiables, what we have done here at Lumen India, and I'm not saying that we are right at the top, we are transforming ourselves radically, right? We are on a path to become a value creator soon. Now, what is it that we are doing? We have created our identity. That's the first thing that we did as a refreshed leadership team. We have a vision statement, which is aligned with the parent's vision statement, but has a very clear twist in it in terms of creating our identity. And the twist is that we will transform our value proposition from just being a pure play execution unit to one which is executing, but also radically disrupting the marketplace through new products and innovation, right? So that's one thing that we have done. So the non-negotiable over here is, there is a framework that Gartner had published long back, and I have implemented that at Fidelity, at Northern Trust, and doing here as well at Lumen. You got to have a segment of the company which is thinking for tomorrow and beyond. Very small segment. A large portion of your organization is about cracking the wheels and making sure the ship is sailing. But how do you make sure that the headwinds are taken care of for the future? How do you make sure you are leading the competition in the future? Otherwise, someone's going to come and eat you for lunch. So this small group of people, 5% of the employee population, is focused on innovation, radical thought leadership, creating new products, new services. So that's the thing which is non-negotiable in my opinion. If you have to have a successful GCC, you've got to build an R&D center or an innovation ecosystem where you are continuously creating thought leadership through white papers, through creating new products or new services, or elevating experiences of customers. That's the non-negotiable that we are working on.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, right? Coming to you, Dhanya, and I think Fluence is a classic example for it, right? Where headcount is not equal to value creation. So I think you'll be the right person to add into it. Can you just expand on the same thought?
Certainly. So for those of you who don't know Fluence, Fluence is a battery energy storage solutions company. And what we do in India is we design the technology and the product and the whole tech stack that goes behind making it work. And we also help implement, install, and service. So that's what we do. But to your question, so globally we're about, last year we closed with a 2.7 billion in revenue, but a headcount of just about 1,700 people worldwide, right? So for us, value certainly not equal to headcount. But specifically, I'll respond to two things, talking about how do you build that value. I think it starts with the vision of what we want to do in a location like India, right? So when we started, and I had the privilege of being one of the founding members of the India org, so there was lots of names that was thrown about, that we should name ourselves in a particular way, right? So how many of you believe that a name sort of defines your destiny in some way? Only a few of you? Okay. I'm a strong believer in that, because some of the names that was thrown around at that time was, we'll call ourselves a competency center. We'll call ourselves a technology center. And my view at that point was, I said, we need to call ourselves the innovation center. So we need to be the global innovation center. And this I'm talking a good few years ago, right? And At that time, innovation was not really part of the DNA. There was barely any people. But simply because we started with the vision of this is what we need to be, it allowed us to attract a certain kind of talent. It allowed us to do a certain kind of things. And it also prevented people from slotting into India into a box. Right? So what followed over the subsequent few years is today, Fluence in India is a microcosm of Fluence globally, which means at least 80% of our global teams have some sort of a representation in India. And more than 50% of our product and supply chain organizations are based in India. In other words, where we are operating right now is trying to truly address two things that any CEO and board of an organization will care about. One is speed, the other is competitiveness. Because if you can build an organization that can talk directly to the strategic priorities at the board level, then the value generation is inevitable, right? Now, it's not just the name, it's not just what we say, but it is also about how we measure ourselves. So our KPIs are not local KPIs, are not functional KPIs. They are directly aligned to the strategic KPIs of the organization. Simple example, and I'll pass the mic on. Because we called ourselves the Innovation Center a few years ago, people started always questioning, am I doing something innovative? Fast forward 2 years, for the first ever time, we have the upcoming product that we're taking to the market. It's called Smart Stack, is conceptualized out of India, designed out of India, protoed out of India. And that is a significant milestone when you think about calling yourself the Innovation Center. And here's the kicker to it. All of this done with the intent to crash product life cycle, the development life cycle, right? Typically in our industry, it's about 2.5 years. We're attempting to do it in 8 months. So when you show the art of possible, that's when the value of a location comes to bear. Absolutely. And therefore, it doesn't matter that, it's only so many employees. What matters is what are these employees doing that talks to the strategic priorities of the organization.
Absolutely. I think microcosm is a favorite word in Zinnov. We use it pretty much in a lot of our global stakeholder presentation. And I'm really great to know that Fluence is in the right path for it, right? And it's also a great gentle reminder for us that scale and the value creation is always not directly proportional as well. With that, we'll come to Sunita, right? We'll take it a little bit of different direction. As we talked about, I think Rohit, Soumitra, and Dhanya talked about the value creation side of it. Outcomes is something that the companies look forward for, right? As you talk to the global teams today, what are the key outcomes that actually garner their attention at this point in time, right? Have we moved differently from the ways we used to have the KPIs and SLAs? Is there a different metrics that we are looking into at this point in time?
Sure. Thank you. And microcosm is a favorite word of mine as well, but I won't use it now. Before I get deeper, I just wanted to ask anyone in the audience or the panel, do we know what a head count means? Because you typically keep saying, oh, we are increasing head count. And that's kind of a measure of, we just said it's not the measure of success. Anyone wants to have a go at it? Yeah, actually it started by saying every head counts. So my biggest belief is that if I have 50 people, if somebody could run a startup, if I have 700 people in State Street Investment Management, I could run multiple of those without having to worry about how do I pay them the salary next month. So that, to me, has been the opportunity right from the day I started working for, it was then, I don't even remember what it was called. So in the year 1992, Deutsche Bank set up a software unit in India, and I had the honor to be one of the 8 founding members. While the industry was started on the basis of cost, you will be surprised to know the amount of traveling we used to do, business or first class. For every little thing, drop of a hat, we would be all over. And Rohit, maybe I can share some of the experiences that you might have had. Why am I going a little detour to the question that you asked, right? Value creation is not something new. I started on my journey with multinationals saying that I am going to be the best developer they've ever hired, right? That's my dream. I don't want to be the best in India. I want to be world class. So whenever people join my team, I don't look at, oh, what are they going to do for India? What are they going to do for the organization? And value creation for companies like us comes from, are we giving new product ideas? Are we moving up the value chain within the team? So one of the favorite questions my teams have is, are we going to grow this year and by how much? So last year in the fully packed town hall of 700 plus people, I said, yes, we are going to grow. I don't even think we have scratched the surface of what this team can offer to the organization. And we're going to do more and more of that. And that's why continuous value creation is a mindset we need to get into. And then everyone is constantly thinking about, okay, what am I doing? Now I'll just leave with one more thought here. So I had people from, my lead scientist in my prior firm was someone from Bell Labs. He'd gone to Kellogg's. He then worked with Bell Labs. Then he worked with another firm and he returned to India. And he was my lead scientist on the team, right? He came in and we had a very complex migration with like a software search platform, which was developed over 12 years. And we had given a plan to migrate it within 18 to 24 months. We did all that. And Harsha was his name, he walks to me and says, hey, are you going to be expecting me as a lead technologist to be doing small enhancements to this big piece? And I really thought of it. I mean, someone with 22 patents, extremely highly technical. He was from IIT Bombay. And so much learned. Am I going to make best use of his talent? But I need people like that because one line goes wrong in the platform, hell breaks loose. It's a highly available platform back like 20 years ago. It had 30 products that it was supporting. So I could not have anyone less than capable of that role. I said to him, Harsha, you can do one thing. 60% of your effort or your time is going to be spent on maintaining this. That's your bread and butter. 40% of the time, I'm willing to give you 3 or 4 bright interns you select and you innovate. So Bell Labs, when they set up in India, they've we kind of took some thoughts from there. So Bell Labs did one thing in terms of they would only keep innovating. Now, if that could be turned into a product, if there was market, if not, they filed the patent, right? And that's the beauty. Your work is not getting wasted. So I told this person and he said, yeah, that's a great idea. I want to stay here. And what happened at the end of that effort, a year later, there is this monolithic search that we are running, and it was fabulous. They're still using it. This small team, came up with a prototype for that entire search to run on a tablet called Akash. Many of you in the room wouldn't have been very familiar. It was a Canadian company that developed it, and it was available for 2,000 rupees back then, right? And they said, we can run it. And Thomson, we were working with Thomson Reuters, and Thomson had a division which was for small lawyers. And we could actually go out and sell a low-cost solution. So long story short, value creation is a mindset.
Absolutely, yes.
And it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in operations, or you're sitting in technology, or you're doing quant research. The mindset of value creation, if you bring, and we are a global organization. So little by little, I think all we say is, okay, that's a Bangalore team versus a Boston team. I don't use the term GCC anymore. So,
yeah, most of us also want to come away from that term. While we talk about the SLAs and outcome, one of the key SLA that we talk about is in terms of the customer insights being added to the product here or to the technology that the India Center is driving, right? Dhanya, you being a younger GCC comparatively, how do you think in terms of your organization is embedding the customer insights, right? Because customer centricity is a core for a lot of the organizations. So can you please expand on the thought?
Certainly. So, you've got to be thoughtful about it in the sense, it has to be an intention for any of us building an organization in India where we are not directly supporting customers in India. Unless you intentionally want to seek out customer insights, it's not going to happen, right? And that's true for us because none of our folks in India are actually directly talking to end customer on a daily basis. However, what we do have in India is over the last year, we've built a remote monitoring and diagnostics team. Okay, so what this team does is they monitor our entire base of installed assets around the world, which means at any point in time, we would know how our product is performing live at a location, right? And they have their own methodologies of doing that. And through that, in a linear traditional setup of the past, what I might have done in a different organization is, yeah, that's a remote monitoring team, they do their stuff. But because we are trying to build this whole innovation and customer first mindset, we have an intentional way in which that knowledge of how our assets are performing in the field is shared intentionally with the broader team. So if I have an inverter technologist sitting in my product development organization working on, the next version of our product, then that person has the opportunity to just walk into the remote monitoring and diagnostic center, ask, okay, so which are all the inverters we've used in the past and how does that work, right? And where do we have the most customer complaints, where we don't? So there's an intentional feedback loop that has to be built to make sure that people who by design are not in customer facing roles have access to customer information. The second thing that we do is we've also set up a team which is called the technical competitiveness team as well as the commercial competitiveness team. And their job is to actually scan the international market and see what the landscape is. And we don't keep any of that information secret. That's accessible to all our employees. Anyone who's working on anything that impacts our future product will have access to that information and seeks that out. So in other words, I think simple answer, you can do it even if you're not designed to be a customer facing, as long as you're intentional about making that happen.
Absolutely. I think one of the key things around value creation is built around talent. So Rohit, coming back to you, why do you think the top talent should choose India GCC to work with, let's say compared to a startup or a service provider or India companies?
Maybe the short answer is they should not. But again, a little bit going back, around 2012, 13, I was at Yahoo and we had a center in China, and I used to visit Beijing often for some of that stuff. It was so surprising that when I went there, while in India we were able to attract the top talent, we were not able to attract the same top talent in China because they never wanted to work for multinationals. They actually wanted to work for domestic startups, and those days Baidu's people probably did better than Google in those days for this center was happening. And that was very eye-opener for me because everybody in India sort of runs towards multinationals, but they did not do the same in China. And of course, Chinese market is a closed market. They don't they're not very competitive to external factors. India, on the other hand, is a much more open economy. So what you realize over time has happened is that just like in the other thing, each of them has fed into the other one. So today, if I go to somebody and go and say, they want to do really business impacting work, they want to go work for Flipkart or Swiggy, Ola, some of them, but they don't want to come work in a multinational because all you're doing is one small bit piece in a much bigger giant challenge. So what's happening now as we go along is that GCCs have realized, most of them at least, who are on the higher end of the spectrum, probably your top 8%, that if you need to engage and you need to keep this top talent, you need to make them have work that is actually extremely challenging and business impacting work. And that is what is making GCCs smarten up and understand that for this talent, they'll have to do that. What is also happening is that it is also benefiting a lot of the local domestic startups because people who work in some of these organizations and have learned supply chain and customer and everything else are actually taking a lot of that knowledge and going to our domestic startups and making them better. I used to joke, at one time that Flipkart owes a lot of its success to a very bad CEO at Yahoo, right? Because a lot of the people moved there. In many ways, what is happening is that beautiful ecosystem is actually developing, which is spreading and essentially making sure that they are challenging each other. So there are a lot of people moving from startups to big companies, doing really great work because the GCCs really want that. At the same time, a lot of people from there coming into startups and building really strong startup for the Indian ecosystem. I believe what is going to happen is that over a period of time, to my earlier point, is that when Indian startups start becoming more global, we'll start realizing that there'll be a happy medium where we will also look like GCCs in some sense, potentially having centers in the US and doing some of the work there. There's of course going to be always need for, cost effective, scalable solutions in which a lot of, companies are going to fit in, and that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong in it. It's a very great value creation as well. So that will happen. But at the higher end, there's going to be a very strong and interesting interplay between both the sides. Of course, there are going to be some GCCs at the high end, and where people will go for resume building, lots of money for doing no work, so that you can write on your resume, I'm ex ABC, I won't name any company there. But those are really the talent blockers, if you will. They will continue to exist, but majority of the folks will end up having a very nice interplay between the two sides. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think everybody should ask the question, why should I work for a GCC? And as they do that, I think they'll realize that they'll push the GCC value up and at the same time build really great startups from India that essentially will be global companies along the way. And that's what I think in the next 5-10 years is going to happen in a big way. It's already happening, but it's going to happen a lot more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Rohit. I think while we talk about the top talent, we touched upon innovation. I think each of you during your answer talked about how India is an innovation hub. So specifically to you, Sunita, because you're working in a BFSI organization which is in a compliance heavy environment, right? In that case, you talked about an innovation story. How do you ensure that you empower leaders to ensure that they constantly innovate?
Sure, Aishwarya. And I think it is true for many, not just BFSI, right? But additionally for us as an asset manager, we also have fiduciary responsibility for our clients. So that's in addition to everything else that people go through, we also have to make sure that we're not tampering with the data or we're not kind of getting them in a not so good place. So one of the things around empowering, I have a very simple philosophy. Somebody empowered me at some time, took a chance with me, which got me here. So until it is proven wrong that somebody's done something not so good, we do a lot of training for the ecosystem that we exist in. I build very good connections with the audit team because they actually can sensitize everyone to say what is good and what is not so good or not to go there. But beyond that, I'm a believer every human being is intelligent. I put a lot of time in hiring the right people. I like to hire people who can do my job. So I think everything else is just getting them to work together as a team. Yeah. And maybe one last thing I'll say is on the talent front, right? They used to say T-shaped people, where, the best description I've heard is from Vishy Pusala, who was heading Bell Labs, and then I think he went to Facebook and now is an entrepreneur. He said, we all have heard the story, Jack of all, master of none. But T-shaped is Jack of all, master of one. And that one is the deep skill that you have as an individual, as a professional, which you bring to the table, and you're really, really good at it. That T-shaped has now become pie-shaped, which means you need two deep skills. And then the horizontal actually is your ability to work with multiple other teams, because there's nothing that one individual can do anymore. Even if I'm running a startup, I'm still dependent on a lot of other things. So pie-shaped is the people. And why I come here is that in the horizontal, compliance and guardrails have to be there. If you're not there, then we're not going to be able to succeed as a BFSI or a company that has fiduciary responsibility.
Absolutely. I think guardrails doesn't mean there's handcuffs. You can still innovate for it.
It should not be. Then you should
yeah.
build machines, not human beings.
But that's
If
an
I may-
interesting thought on...
If I may just add to what Sunita mentioned, right, from the innovation ecosystem, I think perfect points on the pie talent and the T-shaped talent. One factor which really promotes the cause of innovation in any ecosystem is your ability to absorb failures and celebrate failures. When you create an R&D ecosystem, Do not expect that you're going to have fabulous results and you'll be on the front page newspaper, TV channels. No, that's not reality. You're going to fail 99 times, after which you will see a ray of success. So the ability, the appetite of the leadership to absorb failure, recognize and celebrate them is very important. And that's exactly what we did at Fidelity Investments when we set up the Brokerage Research and Innovation Center. So people used to mockingly call us, okay, you have a toy shop. And we were proud of the toy shop. The toy shop had POCs, MVPs, which never made their way to the market. But we celebrated them. But at the end of 2 years, we came up with a fabulous product. You can look it up on Google. It's called a Splink. It was built from India. Let me take it back. It was thought from India, conceptualized in India, built and rolled out from India for 25 million users back in the US. So it's about setting up your brokerage ecosystem by just scanning the backside of your driving license. Traditionally, it used to take 15 days. It was done in less than 2 minutes. So that's an example of innovation.
Absolutely. But that's a great analogy, Sunita, the pie-shaped people. I'm just going to use it forward for sure. While we talk about the pie-shaped people, it's just not the skill, where Sunita was also alluding to. It's also about building the culture, part of your organization as a part of your DNA. So Dhanya, please tell us in terms of how are you doing it in Fluence to ensure that this becomes the DNA of your employees or your top talent, to ensure that there is a constant culture of innovation, also in terms of shaping the roadmap from your organization.
Sure. I'll answer it in two parts, right? She asked the question, how do you change a perception of, is this a value generator, innovative location? And it goes back to the culture of what gets signaled. But we also have to make peace with the fact that not everybody at all times will look at us as innovators and value generators, because people will be on their own spectrum. Like there'll be some people who think, I don't know, India's an outpost, I have no idea what they do. And then you'll also have within the same organization very passionate advocates who believe that this is a highly talented team that's impacting, right? So part of that is also making peace with that dichotomy. But that said, innovation, culture, microcosm, 3 words, I'll connect that. When we build a location like India, where we say we want to be a microcosm, which means that we want to be embedded inside the global organization, not as a parallel to the global organization, not as a one function to the global organization, right? So what that means is you don't have a choice but to tell people here in India, you're a global team. So one of the first things that we coach ourselves is, can we just stop saying we are an India employee, right? So it's a signal, because the moment you feel I'm part of the global product org, then everybody is part of the global product. Because no person sitting in Germany says I'm the Germany product org or I'm the US product org, right? So I think, how do you actually signal something like that? The second, I love how Soumitra said the ecosystem, right? Or a sandbox, an innovation sandbox. So what we do at Fluence is we run a incubator program called InnoVolt. Okay. And the whole idea is keep it super simple for people to give you an idea. And the way we launched it is we said, you know what, if you have an idea, all you have to do is write 2 sentences on the idea, click submit. It was as simple as that. And people find that easy, like they don't have to spend too much time thinking about what that idea is. Then they said, then we sit together and review those ideas and say, this is interesting. Then we say, hey, you very senior leaders who are capable of being mentors, we assign them to those ideas and say, can you just help them flesh this idea, think this through? Not too much, but just to a PPT point. If somebody can generate a 3-slide PPT of that idea with the support of a mentor, then you're having a way to look at the idea. And then from there, you filter. And this is a constant program that we run every 6 months. Okay, so what it does is, it makes it so easy for everybody closest to the problem that they're solving to take 2 minutes to click an idea. And then when they see, and when our CEO was here in India a few months ago, we had all of them, especially the finalized ideas that went through the process, present to the CEO. And imagine what a kind of a lift it would give to people. Because the moment a CEO sees it, then you get monies assigned to it for the pilot. Then it becomes real. It becomes tangible. That is how, if you can instill that sense of we are an innovation, led organization. We have the option to share our ideas, and we know that our ideas will be heard and evaluated. And I always set this expectation with our people saying, look, I will guarantee your ideas heard. I cannot guarantee it will be implemented because that's a function of n number of things. But you know what? People value that. People say, you know what? If you just hear me out, I'm good, right? And that has led us to so many global innovations that is crashing cycle times for us and becoming an accelerator to how we go to market. So
That's,
I
yeah.
mean, I just echo everything you said. And I think, see, innovation doesn't necessarily mean a nice, shiny, out of the box idea that you have and you're going to go put millions in it, right? You just mentioned about actually innovating within the process. So, in our case, the best innovation last year was about 2 analysts, research analysts worth of work was taken over by the operations teams. Now it's a win-win because in the operations team, you're now getting much higher value-added work, which we kind of sometimes look to our US partners giving us. And then on the analyst side, they have work to do they have time to do much higher value-added work, right? So constantly thinking and not getting like, oh, I'm an India person, I'm only here to kind of wave the India flag, doesn't go very long. We are all a part of a global organization, and whatever we think, breathe everything for the organization we work for. And we don't want to be left behind in India. And there is going to be a lot of mundane work, as much as we talk about innovation and irrespective of what we call us. I believe even if like 20-30% of our work is interesting and is challenging our intellect, we should do the rest with wholeheartedly, so that that's our bread and butter. I'll go back to the same thing. I cannot afford to lose out on the operations teams kind of going up and doing really well just because they took on some work from another team and they're moving up the value chain. So quality, I think, is of essence. Unfortunately, it doesn't always come from our DNAs. We are okay to say it's all right. That doesn't work very well, right? So
I think that's a great thing, right? It's not just happens, the culture, it needs to be cultivated day in and day out by the leaders and organizations, right? As we talk about the leaders, Soumitra, to you, right? What do you think is the one legacy leadership quality that the India GCC leaders need to get over with at this point in time? And one, according to you, that they need to learn in, or the one that you live by, right? And give it to the next set of leaders in your organization.
There are many actually. Sorry. But,
Yes, please, happy to explain.
I think I'm going to touch a very fundamental topic over here, right? To play the value delivery game, we have to change the conversation at the table. The conversation yesterday and today is, how many headcounts do I add next year? How much of budget am I getting? Or in an advanced state, it is, oh, I've saved $3 million this year in OpEx. That's not value delivery. I'm being blatantly honest about it. Saving OpEx, automating, Kaizen is part of our day job. It's a job responsibility. So we should stop glorifying job responsibilities and mixing them up with innovation. I think the shift that has to happen is, well, we built a product which is adding 2% to the revenue with an 8% market share in your customer base. I want to double down the investments on that. So the ability to ask for budget for delivering 10x the value of the budget is what the conversation at the table should be. And this is the legacy mindset that we need to get out of. Headcount, automation, Kaizen, OpEx. They are things of the past, and they're a given. They are table stakes today. That's all I would say.
Got it. I think modern leaders are actually moving from the leadership persona of control to empowerment. I think with whatever I heard of from the examples that you guys are saying, I think you guys are living examples of how the empowerment needs to be done for your next set of leaders for sure.
And from an empowerment standpoint, right, I think most of us have been talking technology and product and customer service. But a very critical component of that is, and I touched it in the beginning, is our employee value proposition. The employee value proposition is no more about fun Fridays. It is no more about my long-term incentives or shares which
Not
are
just
coming in.
comp and ben.
Yeah, it is not about comp and ben. Comp and ben, like, yeah, those are fundamental. Those are given. You need to take care of them, right? Those are extrinsic motivators. And I keep going back to my favorite topic. What's the intrinsic motivation that you are providing your employees? That is employee value proposition. So if you are able to build an ecosystem where I can associate myself with something which is either touching a customer directly, indirectly, or I'm adding to the top line, bottom line, that gives me a sense of fulfillment and pride. That is the new EVP we all need to start chasing.
Absolutely. We started this entire panel discussion with the question of how do you envision your GCC, right? What is a persona? We actually wanted to end the panel discussion with the question, how do you think the headline of your GCC will be 5 years from now? Let's say in a Forbes magazine or some of that, right? We'll start with you, Rohit. It's a headline, just a reminder.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a business which is growing very fast. So I would say 5 years from now, if we can go back and say how Wayfair India TDC was, part and parcel of growing Wayfair's revenue by X percentage, that would be a great achievement in terms of what we are doing.
Absolutely. Soumitra?
Okay, I think I kind of gave my headline, but I'll polish it a little bit.
Okay.
Lumen India creates Blue Lotus Labs, which is adding to 5% of the company's top line.
That's amazing. Looking forward to that. Dhanya?
5 years, huh? So one thing for sure, I do want to see this, right? I want, like Fluence has always been a pioneer in the market. So I would love for the headline to be Fluence continues to be holding the pole position in the market and drives innovation through its incredible talent worldwide and particularly in India. So
Absolutely. Sunita?
Mine is a little, okay. So my the way I look at our GCCs, today my goal is that I bring in as much revenue which is equal to the cost that I have. So I've always kept my eyes on the cost. And what I mean by that, you cannot actually decipher. We are a cost center, so we cannot, but then you want to be able to bring that many deals. 5 years from now, I call it's a break even for me to say that if I'm 30% of State Street Investment Management in terms of the people, I would like to bring in 30% of the revenue. That to me is a break even, and beyond that, it's limitless.
That's amazing, Sunita. As our leaders talked about their 5-year headline, I'm sure all of you here might also be thinking what your organization's headline will be, let's say 5 years from now in the Forbes magazine or any of the top magazine. What we would all say is that with the powerful stories that we heard here from today, let's go and build that organization together, build that India ecosystem together. With that, we come to the end of the entire panel discussion. Thank you so much for all of your time. Please let us know if you have any audience question. We're happy to take that.
What are your 2 cents for GCC, which has been a back office, essentially started off as a back office and been the same for the last 10 years? Now in the transition at the juncture where, trying to contribute up in the value chain and trying to transform itself into a ER&D center, right? So how do we change that paradigm shift in the mindset and also the culture of the organization in that process?
So I think, many of us went through that phase, right? So it's not new. I think one thing really helps is when you have a team. Every individual matters. So how do you help them relate to the purpose of the organization? That's the first, right? So for us, for instance, the purpose is that we help create better outcomes for the world's investors and the people they serve. Now that doesn't change with location. It doesn't change with business lines. Doesn't change anywhere. And what I have found very useful is, irrespective of what team you're leading, giving them the purpose, giving them how does the organization make money, making them understand, simplifying it. Jargon doesn't help. Have to be extremely, extremely simplified. And then giving them incentives, even locally, even before you convince the world, you have to be convinced that yes, we have arrived. These are the mechanisms that we're using. So it is not difficult, but just start building connections with your peers. It's not always the boss. We don't really work in an environment where the CEO says something and people will go implement it. We ask 50 hard questions before we go ahead and implement it, right? So I think start small steps and get the team, build the momentum. And you will be surprised how much people know about it. It's just that they've never had an opportunity to really kind of do something different. Innovation doesn't always have to be a written down program. You can actually start innovating even before kind of, we always think of headcount. One story I'll leave you with and then ask my colleagues to opine on this. We recently, it's been a dream for all of us in India that we would sometime enter the market as an asset manager. Many of our peers exited in 2015 and they're now coming in big ways, and we took some time to think about. We made an entry this year. We've invested in a fintech solution and we have a really good thought in terms of how we would do that. We accomplished the entire filtering of fintechs and AMCs and where we want to partner without adding a single headcount, right? The CEO was directly working with my head of investments on identifying this. So all I want to bring to your attention is there will be some people who are thinkers. So start to give them certain things which they can build and just take pride in. The example I gave you of back office actually taking on some of the front office, lower end work. I think you will have so many friends in the organization by doing that it'll help you make that change.
Rohit, would you like to
Happy
add
talk
on?
about this later if you really need more.
Yeah, quick this thing. I think first of all, there is no always a reason that people have to move from there. There's nothing wrong in doing great back office. Like I said, a lot of people are going to do that. Stay there, nothing wrong. If you want to move, the first question is why? And second is in how much time, right? I have very rarely seen if there is no why, then nothing happens. If there is a why, but the time frame is 20 years, doesn't happen. Or 2 years, 4 years, doesn't happen. If there is a why and there is an immediate need, and the examples in the past that we can talk about later, doing it, you just have to do a transformation of your talent pool sometimes, right? It could be sometimes through growth, sometimes through replacement, sometimes to a very big change at the top as well, right? So answer the question why, answer the question time frame, and you'll get an answer.
I have a question. If I'm audible over there?
Yes.
So, being GCC transformation leaders, that's a practical problem that we usually face when we talk about AI implementation, AI ML implementation in any of the streams functions. The major problem which we face over there is the mindset of people working over there on ground. So, and implementing something like AI ML in a process is seen by the associates as the company wants to remove our work, company wants to remove us basically. But it's not the case always basically. So, and we talked a lot about change management methodologies, how to manage that kind of a change. But practically it's very difficult actually to influence people's mind over there working on those tasks, and that task they are seeing that it is going to be eliminated. So how as leaders you see those situations and how to tackle as people managers, for us, any advice?
Move up the value chain, embrace the change. All this thought about very few people are going to have jobs is not correct. Very few of the current people will have jobs is probably correct. If they do not pivot and do not change, many people will not have jobs. But will there be as many or more jobs? Probably yes. First time we got computers in 80s, when Rajiv Gandhi tried to introduce this, there were protests on Indian streets saying people are not going to have jobs. We probably created the biggest economy out of it, right? Same thing is going to happen in this, but it's not going to be the same people unless they believe that they are going to change. And I keep telling everybody, you're going to lose your job if you don't believe that you're not going to lose your job, right? So be threatened, fix it, and learn. And you will be able to move up the value chain. It'll be great. Great future for us.
I haven't faced this at Fluence, but I can recall, during my tenure with a different company, I won't quote here, but when we could foresee that automation was going to impact a lot of testing jobs, right? And the test engineers did have a problem with automated testing. So when you just go at it linear, means, hey, new technology, we have to adopt, do it, without providing the support for upskilling and reskilling opportunities for the same people, you will face resistance because you're not giving them an alternate view to what their life could be, because this is all they know so far, right? So I think you will have to do it as a combination of, it doesn't matter if this particular job is going to get automated or AI'd or whatever, but here's your path. And here's like 5 things you can reskill and upskill yourself. And I think that sort of makes it easier for people to adapt and evolve. Yeah.
My question was, you mentioned about, the value prop that if our headcount is 30% in India, then, the target should be that, the revenue contribution also should be 30%. So one of the challenges that, we have been grappling with in our organization is having this dual identity where we say that we are part of a global organization, but also there is a large team based out of India, and it requires a different strategy. A different way of doing things for the India Center. So, we kind of continue to grapple with this, are we global or are we India? And the leaders here, we have global teams based out of India who manages, global leaders based out of India who manages team across the world. So most of the time, the challenge we face is that, okay, do we have an India only strategy, or are we are part of a larger global ecosystem? So how do you, in your organization, how do you manage this dual identity? And, what are some of the techniques that has possibly worked for you? Because that is something that we are kind of challenged with right now.
So you cannot have a dual identity. You have to align it. Okay, so that's a starting point. In other words, there is no India without global, and there is no global without India. So which means that you have to anchor to the identity of the organization, whichever is your organization. Second, I briefly spoke about it, which is if the goals of everyone is aligned to the organizational goals, the one that actually gets reviewed at the CEO or the board level, and not just the transaction goals at a function level, that alignment becomes easier. So as leaders within the GCC, we have a responsibility to drive that alignment. The third thing is fundamentally we have to break, you asked this legacy question, which is we have to break in our head that we operate in silos. Everybody believes in their own swim lanes. This is my function. This is all I will do. This is all I'm expected. My global boss expects only this out of me. I will not look left or right. Right? We're trained to do that. We're expected to do that. Maybe even our global bosses set that expectation that that's how. But somehow that behavior is fundamentally detrimental to the growth of the India organization. We have to break free from that. Because the moment you break free from that silo and you start talking to the teams sitting to the left and right, you learn so much more about your business. And therefore, the value you will do in your day job becomes so much more enhanced because you now have more pieces of the puzzle than just one piece of the puzzle, which is your function, right? So step one, do not allow anybody to even think that we are different organizations with different priorities. You're one organization with one priority, which is your global organization. Second, break the silos, come what may. And recognize local problem solving, recognize the horizontal integration that people can build. And that, in combination with everything else we spoke about, should address it. You want to say something?
I just wanted to add to what Dhanya mentioned. Whether you have dual identity, single identity, doesn't really matter. What matters is you need to have a strategy for the center here. And if you don't have a strategy, you will not be able to move forward. So my recommendation is, I think to a certain extent, you might want to carve out some identity of yourself, which kind of defines you. So as an example, if you look at certain companies which are spread across different geographies across the world, right? They associate each of these GCCs in each of these countries with a certain capability. So a specific set of capabilities can be your identity, right? But to work on those capabilities in an India context requires leadership over here to create a strategy and an execution plan. So again, going back to my earlier statement, you need to have a strategy and an execution plan tailor-made for India, because the talent here is different, aspirations over here are different, management strategies here are very different, right? So
Thanks a lot.
And
Thank you
to
so much.
just adding one more point, to have key value metrics in place, like a performance scorecard or a value metric scorecard to constantly assess, seeing how much of the needle you're able to move is also definitely key for that.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, everyone. And thank you so much, panelists. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. Hopeful to meet you all of you separately as well. Thank you so much.